Hello?
Hello, Jughead. This is Archie. Come over right away. It's a matter of life or death.
Oh, relax, Archie.
Attention, all true believers. Marvel Comics is on the air.
A friend of the unfortunate, enemy of criminals. In reality, Dan Garrett, a rookie patrolman, loved by everyone but suspected by none of being the Blue Beetle.
Boys and girls, your attention, please. Presenting a new exciting radio program featuring the thrilling adventures of an amazing and incredible personality. Faster than an airplane, more powerful than a locomotive, impervious to bullets.
Up in the sky, look!
It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman!
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, it is Christopher, a.k.a. the Bronze Age Nerd, and I am joined by
Big B McFly, the comic guy.
And we are broadcasting live from separate drones hovering over major cities and military installations across the United States right now, causing panic, scaring people. No, I don't know. The world's going crazy. Things are going odd, but we're here. We're here to talk about some comic books that will break your heart, which is a kind of a sad topic, but don't worry. We're going to add in some uplifting comic books after that. We're also going to cover all the comic book news. For regular watchers of the show, I was ill this last week and still kind of am getting over some stuff. So we didn't have a show last week. So we have a lot of news. And it's really weird for me to touch base with the news because I completely checked out of most of it for about a week. So like diving into the news today, I was like, whoa, that happened? Oh, that's crazy. So a lot of fun goings on. But first, before we get into talking to everybody that's showing up in the chat, I did want to take a chance to say that we are streaming on a couple different channels right now. We're streaming on my channel. I'm Bronze Age Nerd. We're streaming on Big B McFly's channel over there. Both the links for those channels are in the description below. Definitely go subscribe to Big B. He's an up-and-coming channel. He's got lots of new subscribers, lots of new channel members. We just did a really fun channel member giveaway on his channel last night. That was really cool. Had a huge winner that won 2 different prize packages. That was really awesome. Yeah. And then also we are streaming over on the EXP. So that's another great YouTube channel that has tons and tons of YouTube content for comic books that you will be hearing a little bit more about as we go through the night. I'll kind of plug some of their shows they have coming up. But that link is also in the description. Go check them out. If you're not already subscribed, go get subscribed over there. But first, let's say hi to everybody who's here in the chat. All right, we got GT Key Comic holding it down. I appreciate all those firsts from GT Key Comic, and I appreciate all those seconds from Richard. What's up, Richard? How's it going? Look, they're even having a little conversation back for this. Great, it's great. I love it.
You sure got a first.
Renegade Rants in the house. What's up, Renegade Rants? Thanks for being here as well. We really appreciate you. And hey, what's up? How's it going, Shawnee? Yeah, we are live now. We started about a minute late. Sorry about that. We were kind of just talking backstage, and I didn't realize what time it was. Scott, what's up, Scott? How's it going? Pleasure to see you here, man. Hopefully you're having a good holiday season. Hopefully Gamma Base is doing great. Awesome place to go pick up comic books over there on Facebook. I highly suggest following Gamma Base Comics fans. It's an awesome comic book selling group over on Facebook. And we got Jay lurking in the chat. Love it. So we got to get serious for a second, unfortunately, because I think we need to talk about the reason why we're doing this topic tonight. It's something that's kind of heavy for both of us and for a lot of people in the community. That one of our friends passed away earlier this month, Jen, who you've heard if you watch our show regularly, you probably have heard us talk about Jen, aka Comics Will Break Your Heart. Unfortunately, we lost her earlier this month, and it's been extremely rough on a lot of people. I will say that it was amazing seeing all the outpouring of love and support that people did share, which reinforced everything I already knew about Jen, which is that she was just a shining beacon of light in our community. and just seeing how many people had been positively affected by her was amazing to see. That kind of outpouring of thought. So, we were kind of wanting to do something to honor Jen's legacy, and with the name Comic Books Will Break Your Heart, we thought that talking about some of those harder storylines, this is a tough time of year for a lot of people. I'm totally aware of that. And it can be a tough time of year for people. I'll say it's a tough time of year for me usually, for various different reasons. And to see, that many people out there, sometimes you're looking for a story that can kind of be cathartic or be something that can bring up some emotions, and they're not just your standard, punch them up, beat them up superhero books, which are also great. But don't worry, we're also going to talk about some stories after that we think will uplift your heart if you're not looking for that kind of a story, something that will really be a positive story for you too. So that's going to be kind of a fun topic we're gonna have in the show that I can't wait to get to after we talk about our news. But Bigby, do you have anything you want to share about that before we move on to different topics? Because I know you probably have some thoughts.
No, it was just like, you always hope against hope that things will get better. So it was really kind of a gut punch, and I'm just glad I got the chance to get to know Jen and spend a little time with her.
We saw her back in October,
right.
And was very happy that we were able to do that. In retrospect, like I didn't know she was going to be at the event that we were going to, and
right,
just having that extra little moment was turned out to be very very important. So
yeah.
Yep. And by the way, shout out to Bigby, who constantly was thinking of and looking for ways to help Jen out, and I really kind of inspired me to get involved a little bit more with some of the activism there, and I think you did an awesome job with that. So yeah, absolutely. So we have some comic book news to talk about, and then we will get into our main topic for the show. A lot's happened, as I alluded to earlier. And also, one thing, I don't say this enough, but for those of you in the chat, oh, no problem, Comic Tropes. I was hanging out at his show, Comic Tropes After Dark, is his other channel he does, weekly show on Mondays. And he was inking up some Friday the 13th, Jason. I wanted to say Freddy. Jason stuff, and he was kind of talking about some fun stuff in the chat, so it was really fun hanging out over there. I always recommend checking out his channel and his second channel. So what I never say enough is, if you're in the chat and you have news stories, things that you think we should talk about, bring them up. Sorry, I'm still getting, I have a cough every once in a while tonight, guys. I'm still getting over it. But bring those things up. And also definitely when we get to the storylines that have affected you, I'm most interested to hear about what the chat has to say for the stories that have affected you, or that have, either broke your heart or helped mend it when you've had those times where you've needed those kinds of things, because I'm extremely, extremely curious to see that. Good point, Richard. Got to bring up Sydney Sweeney. It's required. Contractually obligated. All right, so let's move into the news for this week. Some of it, like I said, is actually a little bit older than a week. This is back from December 6th even. But this is pretty cool, and this is one of those things where we talk about spreading the love of comic books. I know Bigby mentions that in his videos, and I'm glad that he does, because it's a very important thing. It's something I believe in a lot. I know obviously he believes in it a lot. I tell you to read comic books every day, which to me is kind of just what comic books are important to all of us for reasons that I think most of the people that are readers and fans know. Well, here's an opportunity for more readers to get involved. We've got, you just look on this rack right here. This is inside, I think this was Dollar Tree, right? I want to make sure, Dollar Tree. It was a discount dollar store. You've got Superman comics, you've got Wonder Woman comics, Batman, Harley Quinn, Green Arrow, comic books that people that are going to go into a Dollar Tree, they're going to recognize a lot of these characters from movies and from comic books and animated shows and all that kind of stuff. And these packs of like number ones are being sold for not $1. Nothing's $1 anymore, right? $1.25, but pretty darn close, which is well below cover price. There's a list of the comics here if you want to go check out this article on Bleeding Cool and kind of get caught up on this with all the different comic books they have. But a lot of good number ones, a lot of good jumping on points. I think this is cool. I think this is awesome.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting idea. I think it might have been better if they would have done some more current stuff, because a lot of it looks like kind of like New 52 and
yeah.
So maybe even like the Absolute stuff might have been cool, because like I discussed this with a couple of my friends and we're like, man, like if the point of it is to bring new readers in, like you're going to go in reading this stuff and you're going to go to the comic shop, right? And you're going to be looking for the next issue of what you're reading, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, but you know, I mean, it's a good idea.
Yeah,
getting any new readers in is good.
It's a good point, and to to kind of Renegade's point here, mixed with what Big B is getting at, what I would love to see. I don't know how many people ever picked up those Walmart packs that came out. They did they did Marvel and DC primarily. Yeah,
those were cool.
And they often had like special printings or versions that are kind of now referred to as Walmart variants, which I'm sure it'll be crazy 30 years from now. Think of those like Whitman variants. Well, there's Walmart variants, right? That kind of thing.
Right.
JC Penney variants, that kind of stuff. But they did like different covers. So like to that point, like Absolute Batman sold out. But hey, do an extra printing, put the special back on it of Absolute Batman #1, and I guess maybe Absolute Batman might be a little violent. Might be the only, I guess, knock against it, maybe. But still, I think it's a good idea. It's a good idea. Get them involved in the current stories. Get them into their LCSs. I'm not the first person to talk about this by any stretch of the imagination, but when you talk about things like bringing back, we talked about Chris's show, The Weekly Spinner Rack, bringing back the spinner rack in the grocery store. I mean, that's where I really got into comic books and picking out my own comic books to read was a spinner rack. I think people that are my age or older can really identify with that, whether it was a newsstand or whatever. Picking up your comic books there, and we don't give kids as easy access to that. Yes, of course they can go to an LCS, but most kids go with their parents to a grocery store at some point. They don't always go with their parents to an LCS, right? So, or
a gas station. That's It used to be in the mini mart, the gas
station,
convenience
store.
Right?
Yeah, totally. 100%. 100%. I agree with that. I'm really glad to see it. So this to me was a really positive thing to see. DC has definitely done like they've put some stuff in Walmart before too, like the I can't remember what they called it now, but like the larger format books that had a bunch of books printed into it. I don't know if they were
the smaller format ones, right?
Well, yeah, it was in a they did one that was like almost like a trade, but like on cheaper paper, and I think they did one that was like in kind of a smaller than comic book size too. But
okay,
my Walmarts didn't really get those, but I know a lot of people
did. Back in the day.
Oh yeah. Oh, cool! I did not know Winco had the discount DC Comics. That's fun. That's hey, we're Best Coast Comics. That's definitely a West Coast thing. That's Washington, Idaho, Nevada, California, and Oregon. That's what Winco stands for. So
formerly Cub Foods, right?
Yeah, parts of it. Yeah, I think so. Yep, local grocery stores, 7-Eleven, Rite Aid for sure. So
Dr. Plagueis.
Yeah, what's up, man? Glad to see you here. I've been posting some fire books recently. Dr. Plagueis has. Go check him out on IG if you want to see some fire books posed next to some action figures, or if you're interested in getting some awesome stickers made. I think I got Big B's here at hand. Dr. Plagueis makes Big B's stickers, which won't focus for some reason. There we go.
You make these ones too.
Yeah, I gave all those out in Heroes for Heroes packages, but those Swamp Thing ones are sick.
He did a great job.
Yeah.
And he was awesome enough last night during my membership drive to give people. He was the first person to sign up. Got a 300 free stickers. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so that was really awesome. Well, thank you, Pluggers.
Speaking of spinner racks, I'll just jump ahead of my stories because it was a perfect segue. I saw this and thought it was really cool. This is from ICV2, which is a great, primarily retailer, publisher, industry side of things, source for comic book news. But there's a new spinner rack coming out that disassembles, which I think is really fun.
With a carrying case? Interesting.
Yeah, so it comes with a carrying case. The idea is it's currently on a Kickstarter. It's 70 inches high on a 12-inch footprint, has 40 pockets. The idea is that it's going to be easy to like take to shows and travel with, which is really cool. But also, I think what's fun about this is there's a lot of people I know that want spinner racks for displays in their home too.
Right. Right.
So, and it's $400, which seems like a lot of money, and because it is a lot of money, but at the same time, honestly, when I've seen some of these on the aftermarket, they haven't been much cheaper, and they're a lot harder to move.
Right.
Probably
not in good condition, right?
yeah, exactly.
And that one looks like it says that it's oversized, so it'll hold all the way up to Golden Age size and graphic novels. So, and magnet books. So.
Right, which is the coolest part about it is if you want to display books, which obviously this is more for display purposes than for sales purposes, more than monthly FOC new release comic books. This is for selling vintage books primarily or for displaying them, and so that's perfect for that. One pro tip for these, by the way, for people that don't want to damage their comic books, get some of those clear backing boards and put those in the front comics that are going to display, because then you can still see the comic book, but you have something that's protecting the front of the comic book from being up against the wire. So, or you can just use those for every comic book in there.
That's really cool.
Yeah, very cool. So I thought that was really neat.
It is really neat. I wouldn't mind having one of those.
So there's a few things here about this next story that I wanted to talk about. And it's kind of, honestly, I think this article at this point is maybe even outdated. Let's see if I can format that a little bit better. So we got to talk about Craven. By the way, we've talked to Chris a few times tonight. He is one of the 10 people that went and saw Craven, apparently. So congratulate Comic Tropes for being one of the people who saw Craven. He said it was very meh. It was kind of just kind of dull, I think was his exact quote. That seems to be the general sentiment. It made $11 million this weekend. I was just reading about on a different article. But there's this whole narrative that now the Sony Marvel universe basically is dead. That I see that kind of permeating, although there's also reports like this that Sony's Marvel movies aren't dead. I mean, this is from Variety, so I think that's kind of an interesting twist on it. But the other point that I've seen talked about now is there's stuff coming out saying, we've talked about Sony Marvel movies so much. And one of the big things that we always kind of talked about was how they couldn't use Peter Parker or other Spider-Man characters, apparently. And one of the reports that came out as part of this is that that's actually not true. That apparently Sony's been able to use Spider-Man in these movies, which, by the way, if you've watched Madam Web, is very confusing because it seems like they go to great lengths to not say Peter Parker in a movie that has Ben Parker, that has has Peter's mom in it. It's just very bizarre. It's very bizarre. But apparently they could have used Spider-Man. This just seems like, okay, what I want to say about this just seems extremely frustrating because it seems like Sony had a hit with Venom and was literally like, hey, I guess people really love seeing Spider-Man villains in their own movie without Spider-Man in it. Like that was the lesson they took away from Venom, and they just ran with it.
Not really.
What the hell?
Right.
I don't know. This is just bizarre to me.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
right.
Yeah. So Chris says Sony was only not using Spidey to keep it clear in case Marvel let them tie into the MCU. That's a pretty big gamble, like in my opinion. I wonder, like, because they probably, if they could have used Spider-Man, they probably could have used Gwen and made her Ghost Spider. They probably could have used, maybe not Miles because he's no, but if they could have used Spider-Man, why couldn't they use Miles? It just doesn't make any sense to me. They could have used those characters. They could have used an alternate version. They could have had Andrew Garfield running around as his Spider-Man, right? Like,
right.
Maybe Toby, but more likely probably Andrew. He seems more open to the idea of regularly playing Spider-Man. It's just confusing to me. That's I don't get it.
I like Gino's idea. They should have had Kraven hunt Venom. That would have been.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Like I feel like every comic book reader can come up with better ideas than these movies actually executed.
Right.
It makes no sense to me. Hey, what's up? How's it going? Missing a few people I need to say hi to in the chat here. So
right.
Go back and try to highlight some of these fine folk that have popped in while I was disgusted with Sony. What's up, Mr. Nope? Sorry about that, but yeah, it's just baffling to me that this continued for so long. Yeah, they should do Ghost Spider, Miles, Black Cat, Silver Sable is a great suggestion. You could do a movie with that. Have her going after a couple of the, Scorpion, something like that, right? There's all kinds of stuff. I mean, you could do my dream of having a Cardiac movie someday, which would be fantastic. It's actually a character I really non-ironically like. Not that I think he should really have his own movie, but I'd be happy. You can do all kinds of things.
There's a lot of good characters they could have used for sure.
Yeah, and it's just baffling to me. Like, I just don't understand what the thought process here was from people that are clearly capable of making some good movies, or at least some, good production value, studio popcorn movies. That's the word I'm looking for. And it's really, you got all these characters that are beloved by people, that have interesting backstories, that cross over with each other.
So I've heard that it's from everybody that it's the best Sony non-Spider-Man movie that they made. So they said, like you said, popcorn movie. It's a good popcorn movie, they said. But
all I've heard about it is it was pretty boring, is kind of what I've heard from everybody. So I don't know. I think Venom will probably go down as their legacy at this point. If this truly was the nail in the spider coffin for Sony. Because I saw another report, which is, I don't know how much weight to put behind it, so I didn't even include it. Another report that said that Sony is now considering selling the Spider-Man rights to Marvel, in total.
Well, it's not a bad move.
Yeah, I mean, be interesting at this point. So,
aren't they? What do we heard? We heard all these rumors about Ryan Reynolds wanting to buy into Marvel. Why don't they sell to Ryan Reynolds?
Ryan Reynolds will cast himself as Spider-Man.
Donald Glover's No Hustler movie.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It's bizarre is probably the best thing I can use to describe it.
Bizarro is the wrong universe. No.
Speaking of the Bizarro universe, though, let's get to making Jay happy here and talk about something slightly different.
There we go.
The first poster man, first poster man. Yeah, this is the first appearance of Poster Man. No, this is the first Superman poster.
That is really cool. Well,
It is really cool. It is really cool. And I believe I heard Chris mention earlier, I didn't see it because I actually tried to go to comicbook.com and find a story about this, but I couldn't. I couldn't find a story, so I don't know if they just posted this picture. But I guess it's kind of a maybe like a lenticular poster.
Okay.
Jay probably knows more about this too.
Jay told me that he got his alarm set for Thursday for the trailer. And he's going to do a live react to the trailer. So, you guys
so cool.
Up to Hydra Asylum. Jay's going to be doing live react to the trailer Thursday, 8 a.m.
I imagine. Hi, John. I imagine it's just going to be Jay like sitting there crying for a minute and a half. Oh, it's animated with the new theme.
He's going to be crying with tears of joy.
I'm excited for this. I have that. I think a lot of us have that feeling of like, please don't suck. But I just don't think it will. I have faith in James Gunn to deliver a good movie, but hey, on the flip side, Superman is a hard character to nail cinematically, and it's obviously a very important, like, of all the things that happened with the James Gunn taking over DC Studios and all that, the idea that, hey, we're gonna basically more or less lead with Superman is pretty bold. Pretty bold.
He's one of the big three, right?
Yep. And you could argue like, oh, technically it's Creature Commandos, and technically retroactively it was Peacemaker, all that kind of stuff too, because they're kind of adding some of these things in bit by bit. But let's be honest, Superman's the first real shot fired, basically, and let's see if it's faster than a speeding bullet or not. My money is on that it's going to be a decent movie at least.
And there's a lot of pressure on James. I'm sure he's going to put his best foot forward to launch this thing right. So yeah.
Comic Trips is joking about the Clayface announcement that, well, not even really announcement, but leak, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. That came out, that we're going to get a Clayface standalone project to follow up Penguin, basically.
Clayface musical. If it's the Clayface from Harley and Ivy,
that would be good. That would be good. I'm all about that. Okay, cool. You're enjoying Creature Commandos. I need to watch it. I've just been so out of it the last week with being sick.
Yeah, I saw that first two. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, it is an announcement. Thank you. I got a real time fact checker that I feel confident in here. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
like I mentioned, I've been out of it the last week, so I know I saw something about it, but I was out. The one day I felt better, I was out doing some social stuff, and I was just like, "Oh, that's cool. I don't have time to verify that this is actually happening." Yeah.
Is this April Fool's? What's going on?
Right. The infamous December Fools.
9/11/26. There we go.
Wow. Just in case. Oh, there you go. Nice. Yeah, you should post that. That's awesome.
Yeah, people go watch that with Jay at 8 Central on Thursday.
And then afterwards, come on back and leave a comment and let us know what you thought about the trailer.
Yeah, for sure. Like Bronze was saying, we'd love if you guys have news ideas. You can always hit us on Instagram, or you can leave a comment in a prior episode, and we'll pick it up and take a look and see what we can find out, and then cover it on the next episode for sure.
Definitely. I did want to take a second to, I mentioned earlier that we're streaming over on the EXP, as well as Big B McFly's channel and my channel, Bronze Age Nerds channel. All the links in the description below, but I did want to take a minute to talk about some of the programming that's coming up on the EXP. So tomorrow, Tuesday, one of my favorite shows on the EXP is Minute to Skim It. You've heard me talk about it before if you regularly watch the show. I do recommend checking it out because I appreciate getting like quick, small reviews, quick reviews of comic books that are coming out for New Comic Book Day. A lot of the major releases that are coming out. You've got my old co-host Kyle. You've got Jay, who's our producer in the show right now. And you've got Miss Jen from Space Cadet Comics talking about new comic books that are coming out on New Comic Book Day and kind of giving you their quick little capsule review is the best way to put it. I highly recommend checking that out. You can check it out at 7 Eastern, 6 Central, 4 p.m. Pacific. It's one of my favorite shows on the XP, and I definitely recommend kind of getting your information about all the new comic books coming out tomorrow over on Minute to Skim It.
I'll say hey to Chaos Prime.
Hey, what's up? How's it going, Chaos?
The son of one of my coworkers.
Oh, nice. Right on.
He has a YouTube channel. He does stop motion animation. So you guys, if you want to watch that, check it out.
Oh yeah, go check it out. Definitely go sub him up. Very cool. Very cool. So I am tired of talking about movies. Let's talk about comic books.
All right.
Let's talk about how Professor X is the next big X-Men villain.
Yeah, weren't we talking about this last time? How you were tired of that? And then they have to do it.
It's just, I don't know, man.
Haven't we done this before?
By the way, I love this is the next like crossover event for the X titles. It's kind of coming after the From the Ashes stuff that's going on, which I'm not caught up on. So it's still, I'm kind of thrown up for a loop with this stuff, but it's going to begin in Uncanny X-Men 11. This is my favorite part, culminating in X Manhunt Omega 1. That is the lamest title ever. Like a weird callback to X-Men Omega from the Age of Apocalypse, but then there's X Manhunt. Like that is just no, don't do that.
Okay.
But yeah, this is kind of your big event you have coming up, I guess.
I mean, unless they're gonna like tie that into it. Hasn't X-Man Nate Gray been missing for a long time? So like
that's true.
That into somehow bringing X-Man back.
That would be cool.
That could be interesting because you've got the title X-Man in there. Maybe.
Actually, kind of can't really see that cover very well, but like the Sinister cape on the back of that cover is pretty cool.
Yeah, there we go.
Kind of made me wonder if that.
What do we got? Like a was that Magneto and Xavier together? What was the name of that guy?
Onslaught.
We got an Onslaught thing going on with like a Sinister Xavier. What's going on there?
Yeah. Well, so I don't know if you how much anybody paid attention to this, but there actually was a thing where Sinister had an aspect of himself stuck in Professor Xavier's head during Krakoa and the Fall of Krakoa stuff. So that's possible. And then Comic Trip says, "Remember Onslaught? He's back in Pog form."
Is that Cyclops blasting Cannonball or is that Havoc?
I think it's Booster Gold. No, it looks like Cannonball.
Like Booster Gold, but I know that's not Booster Gold.
I wish I could make that image. That looks like Cannonball to me.
It does look like Cannonball. Okay.
Yeah.
But it also kind of looks like Havoc's headgear. So
right. I don't know if what Havoc's current costume looks like in this new reboot. Marvel Unlimited, for whatever reason, maybe I'm totally wrong here, but it feels like they're releasing the comic books for the From the Ashes stuff out of order, because some of the stuff is just not, seemed to take longer to come out. So I'm actually kind of waiting for more of it to be available so I can kind of binge read it in the actual order.
Make sure that you read it in the right order.
Yeah. Cause I don't really like, for Marvel Unlimited, one of the benefits to me is it's kind of like, I treat it like Netflix. Like I kind of go in there, I kind of like, watch what I want. I know that binge watch thing is overused, but I for comic books that are kind of in that monthly release format that tell that kind of slow 5-part story, I would way rather read like 5 issues at a time.
Right.
It's way more fun. A few more people hopped in here. Let's see. We got Comic Ozzy. What's up, Comic Ozzy?
Hello,
Pleasure
sir.
to see you. And we got Travis. Hey, what's up? How's it going? Comics with Bueller. Definitely go check out Comics with Bueller as well if you're not already. And Comic Ozzy is another person that I'd recommend following. Look on his Whatnot, for example, and his Instagram feed.
Yeah,
a lot of great people in the chat tonight.
Some really cool books. Some nice high grade books.
Very
Jay.
The X-Manhunt Omega Fall of the House of Zombies return again. I love it. Love it. Hey, what's up, Michael? Thanks for joining us. So I don't know. I part of this is like I've heard not so great things about people that are caught up in the storyline, which bums me out because I was hoping that, if we're going to end the Krakoan era of X stuff, I really wanted it to kind of go to the next level. Being a, X-Men's kind of my jam. I won't complain about better X-Men stuff, but
kind of your jam.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Well, Travis has been saying like he's got some mixed reviews on what's going on. So
yeah, there's been highlights.
Comics Limited. He's been keeping us up to date on what he thinks. So
there's been some highlights for sure from what people have said, but I think in general it's just been kind of meh is kind of what I would describe most people's reaction to it.
So it's like Craven.
Exactly. Kind of dull.
Like the Craven of X-Men.
So this is kind of the next story is kind of a oddity, strange story. Sorry, guys. Hopefully next week that cold will be completely gone. Hey, what's up, Christina? Pleasure to see you here. Thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure to see you. One of the best mods in the game, let me tell you. So I saw this earlier, and this just confused the heck out of me. So Bleeding Cool and some other places are reporting that Bob Layton was banned from his Facebook and Instagram account. He basically had posted on November 22nd. He was doing some usual postings, and then he was suspended without warning from both services. Meta has claimed a lack of account integrity. He attempted to reach out to them, and they wanted to verify some of his information, like his passport, his current driver's license. After 24 hours, he received the notice in the attached picture that his accounts have been permanently suspended. No appeal was possible. No customer service numbers were available. So he basically got stuck. Which, look, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe something got posted that automatically triggered this. But I've also seen so many times with these social media services where literally nothing happens that's against their terms, and people get suspended or banned or whatever. And it's getting really frustrating because, like Bob talks about in his post there, oftentimes you don't have a real human to kind of be like, hey,
right,
I saw this happen, and now what, why did it happen, and what's the next step? I mean, there's no information provided. You did something wrong, you're banned, and then you appeal or something, and then they say, oh, now you're permanently banned because they, the algorithm that they use or the AI they use to find the stuff found it again and says you're out.
And you have no idea what it was in the first place.
Yeah. Now, conversely, like we've had experiences, streaming on this service where we've done and said things that got flagged automatically,
and had to go through some really scary classes that had nothing to do with what we got flagged for.
Right, exactly. Full disclosure, we got kind of like a restricted form of monetization for the video where we interviewed, a lot of people know her as Madam Blaster, Madam. The cosplayer artist, we were talking to her. Well, I think my guess is that some of the content in that video, which was art, was flagged, and then I got restricted monetization. I appealed that, and they reversed it.
I didn't see that on mine.
Right, which is the same stream. So how is it a different result, right?
How does that happen?
So this stuff's really frustrating. Hopefully somebody can get Bob Layton back on. I think sometimes celebrity is kind of a tricky word to use, but sometimes having a following can help with these things, which that's unfortunate. It shouldn't be that way, because a lot of people, this happens to them and they didn't do anything, and they have no, following to kind of, beat the war drums and say, hey, why'd this person get banned, and have somebody human actually review it and look into it. So that's just unfortunate that this happened, and I do hope you can get it sorted out, because artists, writers, comic book creators, they need their social platforms to advertise a lot of that's how they get their word of mouth and con appearances and all this kind of stuff out there, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
I think that's terrible. Speaking of things I think are terrible, there's some weird stuff going on with Diamond. So have you heard much about this, Jigby?
I just skimmed the top of the thing where it's saying give your retailer a hug.
So this is apparently, according to this article, this is fallout from the closing of the Plattsburgh distribution center, which we talked about previously on a different stream, previously on Best Coast Comics. But there's all kinds of issues going on now where retailers are not getting their orders. They're delayed with seemingly little recourse, kind of like the social media situation with Bob Layton. Little recourse to find out anything what's going on. I'm seeing reports of LCSs that are saying like, oh, we're definitely not getting our Diamond comic books this week or next week on time, so it's going to be delayed. I'm seeing reports of empty shelves and stuff like that for people that order from Diamond. But worse, in some ways, I know I saw a video from Billy over at Economics and Comics where he was saying not only is all the delays going on, but he also got like an order that was like, you could, he said that it was described as a box where you could have fit 500 comic books in it. And there were like 4 things in it, basically. And there were like a previews magazine and like a heavy hard paperback, not hard paperback, hardcover. That's the word I'm looking for. Hardcover book. And some comic books, and I'm exaggerating if there's more than like 4 things, but 4 different types of things in there. And the comic books all got destroyed. And that's kind of been the story for a long time with Diamond as far as their shipping goes.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's gotten even worse.
They always do the best protection for the books, for sure.
Yeah, and they randomly will kind of protect a comic book that they send out, like a ratio or something like that, or an incentive, but not consistently by any stretch of the imagination. And definitely kind of an interesting situation that I see unfolding here. And it does kind of make me wonder, talk about in the wake of the closing of the Plattsburgh facility, you talk about different publishers have left Diamond, although a couple have gone to Diamond. Kind of surprising. Like I know Distillery went to Diamond exclusively a while back, which surprised me.
I saw a notification that it's a couple of companies going over, leaving an exclusivity with Diamond. So yeah, that's not cool. I mean, I understand it. What's going on with Awesome Sauce? I saw.
Yeah, I was just gonna highlight his comment because I was kind of getting caught up with chat here. Awesome Sauce said, "What's up?" And we say, "Hey, what's up, Awesome Sauce?" And then I saw his next comment. Can everyone please say a prayer for you? Thank you. I don't know what's going on, Awesome Sauce, but hopefully everything's okay. You can always reach out to me, message me if you got something going on, and we, if we can help somehow, let us know. But yeah, definitely sending positive thoughts your way, man, and hope everything's okay.
Anybody that needs positive thoughts, feel free to chime in. We're definitely about that.
Definitely.
Positivity is a good thing.
100%. Awesome Sauce is a really fun, cool dude. I don't want to like blow up his spot. I don't know if people know. I mean, a lot of people know who he is. He's got kind of a claim to fame. But I don't want to. If he doesn't want to talk about it here, I won't out him as what he used to do. But he's a pretty cool dude, and I've loved following along with him. And he's always a hoot. He appears on some streams occasionally. He's really a funny guy. So I wish nothing but positive things for Awesome Sauce. Let's put it that way. So yeah, Renegade said his LCS had 2 orders destroyed and 4 to 7 days late now. Scott, if you're still in here, do you still get stuff from Diamond, Scott? Because I mean, you essentially run a comic book store. You guys do a lot of orders. I'm curious what your orders have been like.
Stopped including invoices and shipments, including packing lists with no information. That's not good.
No, it's terrible, man. Terrible. So anyway, sorry, I'm just trying to read up the chat here.
Because they used to everything used to be broken down. It would tell you like, your discount percentages, like if it was a ratio variant, all of that stuff, would tell you on your invoice.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously closing one distribution center is a logistical change, but it just seems like there's a lot going on here that doesn't seem good. And Richard kind of pointed this out, which is something else I was going to talk about here. I think I have it. Do I open here? Maybe I have to go back to our Discord and find where I had that article saved off. Here we go. We'll pull that up now. So Boom Studios has switched to Penguin Random House starting this next summer. And so there's another. Boom was probably the largest account that Diamond had left. If they weren't the largest, they were extremely close to the largest for as far as in terms of orders go.
Exclusives,
exclusive to Diamond, yeah.
Right.
And then
so
also
leaving being exclusive, or are they completely leaving Diamond in completely?
So, good question. The move continues. The migration, including healthy Diamond.
Another primary distributor, it says. So yeah. So you still get Marvel books through like Diamond and stuff, but you have to come. So it says Dynamite is the now final remaining publisher client of Diamond's top 7 comic publishers remaining with the company as the primary distributor. So.
Yeah. And so now, I forgot Dark Horse went to Penguin too. IDW, yeah. I mean, geez,
wow.
It's I don't know.
Not looking good for the home team.
No, well, yeah, not looking good for the incumbents, I guess, is maybe the way to look at it. So just interesting. I'll read this comment first, because the first one I saw. I just want to know, does Diamond play football with the boxes before they ship them out? My last 2 orders were completely destroyed. I am sorry to hear that, but that is not surprising based on their stuff I've heard. But Awesome Sauce, to get back to what we were talking about earlier, says he just want to say thank you to everybody just going through a few medical things and getting some more testing done. Love you guys. Well, hey, we're hoping for the best results from that testing that you could possibly get, and hope everything does turn out and everything goes well for you, because I definitely, sending positive vibes your way. Hey, what's up, Sickotron? Good to see you.
Hey.
You're late, but hey, we're still covering lots of news, and we're going to talk about coming up actually pretty soon here, comic books that will break your heart in memory of Jen. We're going to discuss that topic, and then we are going to talk about some uplifting comic book stories after that, some of our favorite heart-wrenching stories, which, Diamond's situation is heart-wrenching in a different way. Let's put it that way.
Nothing was more frustrating than opening up a box and finding that your 1 in 100 variant cover was damaged and they couldn't replace it.
Yeah, that's the worst part too. Diamond is not easy to get replacements through. I know you can in some cases, but they're one of the harder ones to work with from replacements, from what I understand. Everybody has different opinions on that, but that seems to be the consensus. Um, all right, so I think this is our final news story. Except for one other one, but yeah, this is kind of a more positive news. Maybe, depending how you look at it, I guess. But we do have a showrunner that has been attached to the Nova series for Marvel. Um, so Nova has been coming for a while. We've known that, and now we finally have a seasoned showrunner. I'm not familiar with Ed Bernero, but he was on Criminal Minds, which I know was a massive show. I didn't watch it, but it was big. And he's replacing the Moon Knight scribe, whose name I'm probably going to butcher, Sabir Pirzada, who was originally tapped as the writer when the project was in development 2.5 years ago. Nova Corps, I know Kevin Feige has said we're getting Richard Rider and Sean Alexander. Is that the new one? Sam Alexander. Thank you. The newer Nova are both going to appear in the MCU. I don't know if we can take that to the bank, but that's what his comment was at the time. So a lot of people have been debating which Nova we're going to get. It sounds like we're going to get probably a Nova Corps, so we're probably going to get a lot of Novas, is my guess. But yeah, pretty fun stuff for fans of Nova, which, it's still kind of one of those major characters that we have yet to see in the MCU that we're finally getting closer and closer to getting them involved. So.
How many times have we seen the Nova Corps in movies now? I mean, we've seen them like three different times?
Yeah, that's true. We have seen the Corps for sure, like the larger Corps. They've been all over Guardians, and I think kind of maybe loosely attached in a couple other films. I feel like they were in one of the Thor movies too. Ragnarok? Not Ragnarok. Love and Thunder, maybe?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Just Bill, that's right. And hello.
Love it. Happy Monday. How's it going? John's Comics with Kids. Glad to see you in here. I may have missed some other people. Just checking. Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's definitely one of the more interesting kind of events that happened. I just pulled this. This was the last story I pulled. We'll pull it up. I don't even know if I really had time to digest this, but speaking of James Gunn, I love the title of this. James Gunn won't stop shutting down Batman 2 rumors about villains. So the long and short of this is that there's been some rumors about Batman 2, and he's clarifying yet again, which I do appreciate him having to kind of constantly step up and saying, like, stop talking about casting, stop talking about who the villain is. And the reason why is because he says in this quote here, firstly, no, which I'll talk about what that's about in a second. Secondly, that couldn't be the case, as there hasn't been a first draft of a script. That's a mic drop. So basically, people are saying that Clayface and Scarecrow are both set to appear in the new Batman film. But he's pretty quick to say, well, we'd probably need a first draft of the script before we did that. So I love it, because whether or not they've decided that behind the scenes, it seems like studios would always, for like the Batman movies, right? It seemed like they'd be like, well, let's pick out the villains and then we'll worry about the story second. Right? Like and that happened a little bit for Spider-Man too, I feel like at times. Hey, let's worry about the story, the script, and then we'll figure out the villains based on how the story needs to go. Like, I kind of like that approach.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, a lot of the story has to do with the villains, right? I mean,
it does, but you can also tell, like, what story do I want to tell with, if you think about what happened to Batman in Bruce Wayne in the Batman film, the Matt Reeves one,
right.
You can kind of theorize, like, okay, well, where's the character need to go, and what villains might best serve that direction, right?
Yeah, I could see that.
So it doesn't have to be that you never choose the villain and then decide, what the story's gonna be after that. I'm not saying that, but you might say, like, okay, we're gonna try this, and we're gonna really try to turn it into a Scarecrow story, or really gonna try to turn it into a Bane story, or whatever it is. But hey, as long as the story comes first and not well, we think Catwoman and Penguin would play really well with like different audiences, like don't do that. That's my least favorite approach is trying to pick safe options or whatever first.
I like who said Annihilation? Lord of Brooklyn were live. You can't spoil Annihilation. That would be good with the Nova Corps.
Yeah.
So.
Richard.
Start all my scripts with the casting.
I mean, I feel like Madam Web definitely took that approach. With
I love it. Love it.
Oh God, was that
Richard with the comedy?
Dakota Fanning? Am I totally making that up? Is she the Madam Web in that? Am I thinking of the wrong actress?
I don't know.
Dakota Fanning, right? I think
Somebody
I'm right.
did it for it. Who was Madam Web?
Yeah, I mix up those actresses, unfortunately. But I know I saw the question here earlier I wanted to get back to. Chaos Prime asked, what is your favorite Marvel character? And I saw a lot of great answers in the chat. Storm, Daredevil is second. That's cool. Who was that? You that answered, Jay? For
That was Jay answering.
Okay. Wolverine, Deadpool, Spider-Man. Mine is Cyclops. Chaos, just so you know.
Yeah, for sure. Mine's default been Wolverine for a while, but there's a lot of characters that I really like.
Yeah.
I like that. Travis and I were talking the other day, and he surprised me. He said Doom is his favorite character.
Oh, that's a great choice. Solid choice, for sure.
I was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
An interesting, non-usual take,
Yeah. Yeah, the pop sequentialism has a really great point. What script requires a massive setup with the Penguin and the Hangman to land on the Joker in a third film? Because that is almost certainly how they're going to do it based on the ending of the first Batman movie, which if you haven't seen it, spoiler moratorium is up. There's definitely the Joker angle is explored at the end. Or it could, I'd almost give him credit if they never paid that off and just said like he's just one of the guys out there, right? But I'm sure they're going to go that way too.
Richard says Thanos.
Yeah, Dakota Johnson. Thank you.
There we go.
I thought I was making that up in a fever dream. John says Psylocke as drawn by Jim Lee. Wise man. Absolutely.
Wise man said.
Yes, thank you, Dakota Johnson. I appreciate all the corrections. Cyclotron, definitely a Venom fan, big time. And he's worn out from all the movies, massive series, venomized everything. Yeah, that could wear you out. Oh, cool. Okay. Right on. Swamp Thing, watch on the list, right? I think I missed something there.
Swamp Thing watch on all this. I must have missed what that was.
Probably watching Swamp Thing on the vacation, I think is what he's probably guessing.
Okay.
But hey, we've discussed pretty much all the news. Let's take this opportunity to talk one more time about one of our shows that's also going to be happening over on the EXP tomorrow. Or actually, I shouldn't say tomorrow. Let's talk about a benefit they have coming up. It's to benefit Monarch Comics, which unfortunately it's a local comic shop that had dealt with a fire that was very close to Kyle, and so he wanted to step in and kind of help him out. So they have a benefit sale happening December 17th at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, and that'd be 5 Pacific. So definitely go check that out. I guess it is. You know what? I'm sorry. I guess I got my dates mixed up. That it is tomorrow. So yeah, go check that out tomorrow.
Yep.
Definitely love to see people coming together to support a comic book shop. Absolutely amazing, especially one that just went through essentially a devastating fire. So go check out Kyle's Facebook if you want to see some posts about that, or look up Monarch Comics.
I can relate to that. Being in the bottom floor of a skyscraper, and a lot of the upper floors were mental health people, and somebody decided to intentionally light a cigarette, stick it in the couch, and leave. Jeez. And so I'm in the bottom floor, so all of the water from all of the fire came down to the bottom floor. And I just got brand new plastic. You know what great water catchers are? Plastic boxes for comics. Hold water. They don't drain water.
Yeah. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Ugh. But yeah, go check out that fundraiser for Monarch. Hopefully we can support him out. It's funny because we were just going to get into that, and I do believe that will come up on our list. So just for those of us that have joined us since the beginning of the show, in honor of our friend Jen, who passed away earlier this month. She lost her fight with cancer, unfortunately, but not for lack of trying. She fought like hell. And we thought, since her name online was Comic Books Will Break Your Heart, we thought it'd be kind of a nice tribute to talk about some of the stories that have broke our hearts over the years. And we really want to hear about your stories that you think broke your hearts too, just like Pop Sequentialism was talking about there.
For sure. There's so many. Like after I gave you the ones I gave you, I was like, oh, and I'm like, oh no, I gave him enough. It
always happens that way. This isn't really. No, I just deleted it. I want to highlight it. There we go. See if I can bring up at least a picture of yours, because you were smart enough to post some pictures. So I'll let you start off our list, since we just mentioned it in chat. You want to talk about We 3?
We 3, it's an amazing story by Grant Morrison with art by Frank Quietly. The story centers around 3 animals that have been abducted and experimented on by the government. And the government comes in and says they're going to pull the plug, and the scientist, one of the scientists, lets them loose rather than let them be killed. And so then it's the story of basically, have you ever seen the Incredible Journey with the 2 dogs and the cat?
Familiar with it. I haven't seen it.
Okay. It's kind of like that, but with like guns and missiles and rockets and lots of gore. You got a dog, a rabbit, and a cat. And the ending, it'll leave you teary-eyed and wiping your eyes. It's pretty good story. Very good story. Just amazingly well done. The characters can speak because they've been augmented with technology and everything. So it's very good.
Wow. So it's funny. The craziest thing is, so I hadn't read We 3. I've heard of it. It had been a while, but I've definitely heard of it. And then today I was on Reddit and I saw somebody posting, like in one of the comic book forums, about, hey, any love for We 3? So just kind of a weird coincidence, really.
It's a really, really good story.
Kind of made me think about that. So I haven't read it. I definitely want to.
Rated, very affordable and really well done.
Wow. Sorry if we were the ones to inform you, Awesome Sauce, but it was back on December 4th, 5th? I believe.
4th or 5th. Yeah.
We found out about it like a day later, I think is how it went down. So I think it was the 4th. But earlier this month, unfortunately.
Sorry to lay that one on you if you hadn't heard.
Yeah.
I know Bronze was the one to let me know, and he said, hey, I'm sorry to be the one to probably break this to you, but and I was just floored.
Yeah. I think and like I said earlier, I think it affected a lot of us. And that's part of why we wanted to honor her memory in kind of a more of a poetic interpretation kind of a way. But also I figured, like I said earlier, this time of year, there's a lot of people that are kind of seeking out that kind of content more than usual because of different feelings, or Blue Christmas, or whatever you want to call it. Right. Pop Sequentialism, talking about We 3, said James Gunn was hoping to do a We 3 film for years, and he kind of did in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which makes a lot of sense from what we've seen from that description. Yeah. Finagled some of that in there. Homeward Bound, yeah, there we go.
Homeward Bound, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Ooh, so I didn't follow Injustice long enough to know that happened. Damian accidentally kills Nightwing. Oof, the beginning of Injustice could be an entry in this for sure on its own.
Some really sad stuff in it.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a great bring up. So for mine, I didn't post like covers. I probably should have, because it would have been fun to have that up while I'm talking about it.
I always go back and pull them up while I'm talking.
Yeah, well, there you go. I'll cover the first one though. I don't think I need to have an image associated. I think everybody's familiar with this one. So the first one I'll talk about is the death of Superman, and I'll point this out to talk about how this is actually kind of, I set this assignment. This was kind of a little bit my idea, and I actually had a really hard time coming up with a list. And I realized that part of the reason why is because two reasons. One, I tend to avoid comic books that might be intentionally depressing. I'm not scared of depressing stories, but for comic books, I specifically use comic books as more of a surreal escapism type of medium, right? So I tend to gravitate towards sometimes horror comic books and sometimes darker comic books and sometimes more like real world, kind of, I have a lot of indie comics kind of go into those kind of territories, but I generally gravitated towards cape books and G.I. Joe and stuff like that, from my childhood. And so on that same vein, some of my choices might seem like low-hanging fruit because they're the ones that I absorbed, but they actually did affect me in certain ways. So the death of Superman was this mega hyped event. Hard to think about pre-internet, really, hyping of a comic book event in an era where we all can think of comic book hype happening on the internet for events, right? But this was, lines around the building to get into your LCS, pick up copies. And I remember I wasn't reading Superman at the time, so I remember picking up some of the issues that led up to kind of the coming of Doomsday, essentially, that led up to the death of Superman. And I actually got pretty involved in that. I kind of like that idea of kind of use the comic book term, like an unstoppable juggernaut kind of a thing, right? And that's kind of what Doomsday did. If you remember the storyline, he's basically just working his way through the Justice League, and really kind of some C-tier heroes, to be honest, but also some heavier hitters. And then he winds up with Superman, right? And because everybody knows the event, it's pretty obvious. We all know what's going to happen, or at least we assume that's what's going to happen, is that Superman's going to die. But you do want to wonder how that's going to happen. The fact that Superman dies by literally giving every ounce of strength that he has to stop this character, and then seeing the final splash of him in Lois's arms actually did really affect me, in a big, real way that I think a lot of people kind of see and kind of almost scoff at it. But if you really think about it for a second now, and of course, I'm the first to admit it's quickly undercut by the fact that he came back to life so fast afterwards, right? That definitely undercuts the significance of him dying. I admit that for sure. But if you really go back and just look at that moment, it is pretty, this is Superman has elevated himself beyond just a superhero. He is the epitome of superhero for most people, right? And for that character to die is, at the time especially, pretty insane if you really kind of stop and think about it.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool in that way that it can tug at your heartstrings, and kind of really gives you kind of that kind of ability to kind of look at comic books almost like in a surreal way because of the importance of that event. Now, unfortunately, I think it kind of started a trend that wasn't great with superheroes dying. So it has kind of some negative connotations there too. But if you kind of take yourself away from those two factors, that he came back to life right away, that it kind of started that trend of superheroes dying much more meaningless deaths, or at least, catapulted that to the next level. I do think it's a very impactful story. So that was kind of my first choice.
I kind of remember reading that, and there's this, doesn't he say almost the same line Optimus says in the Transformers movie? He says, because Optimus says Megatron must be stopped no matter what the cost, and it's like Superman says something like Doomsday must be stopped no matter what the cost. I'm like, okay, I know what's coming. He's gonna die, you know. But and you knew it was coming. I mean, they hyped that like no other. But yeah, it is very impactful, especially for as a younger reader, for sure, reading that back in the day.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, you know, and especially it was so much different than anything I'd read before that too. Like that's a big factor.
You guys dropping the Artex. Yes. Yeah, that's a pretty traumatic movie from back in the day. Never ending story. They're gonna redo that, right?
Oh man, should they redo that or should they leave that one alone? I don't know.
But definitely a good pick there.
So let's talk about Big B's second pick here.
Yeah, so Richard just mentioned this one a little bit ago, but this Flashpoint 5. So this is kind of similar to the Flash movie, but we instead of the Batman 89 character, we've got Thomas Wayne as Batman. Bruce died as a child in the shooting, and Thomas became Batman. And Flash ends up in this universe where Thomas Wayne is helping him. And at the end, that universe is ending and falling apart. And Flash is going to be able to leave. And Thomas gives him a letter for Bruce. And Flash gives the letter to Bruce. And Bruce reads it. And I don't have the last panel. The last panel has teardrops falling on the page. Yeah. So, yeah, so it's very, very touching.
Yeah, 100%. This one got me too. This was a good pick.
Yeah, so just a great book.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great pick. I mean, kind of a subversion of history, right? Like, you know, we think about Batman the Orphan, and we have for decades.
Right.
Thinking about the kind of inverse of that almost is
his father having to grow up without his son, having to live with the loss of his son all those years, and then getting like a small form of connection again to his dad, across,
and vice versa
across universes, to be able to say, you know, just really. So
yeah, great choice.
Definitely made me tear up reading that.
Yeah. No, that's a fantastic choice. For me, it's funny because people are talking about John, who's a huge Batman fan. I was talking about my next choice, which I was going to make a joke about it when I talked about the death of Superman, because one of the biggest copycats of the death of Superman was the breaking of the bat, in my opinion.
Right.
But, and I actually normally probably would not have much to say about the breaking of the bat, to be honest with you, with the exception of the fact that it affected me personally, because I broke my back in a car accident when I was 16. So actually, in a weird way, that story really did affect me, because if you don't remember in the story, Bane, obviously, you know, I think everybody knows that panel where Bane snaps Bruce Wayne, you know, Batman over his knee. But then Bruce, you know, obviously Azrael takes over the mantle, becomes a little too unhinged, a little too violent, and then Batman decides, like, I have to step back, I have to come back, I have to become Batman again to save Gotham and save everyone I love. But he has to force himself to rehabilitate through that injury, which is kind of inspirational to somebody who's broken their back, to be honest with you. And you know, I was very lucky in my situation. I fractured my L3 vertebrae. Luckily, I didn't have any spinal cord damage or anything like that. I do have some lingering issues to this day, for sure, from it, but I relatively got out of it unscathed, considering. But it definitely caught me on.
How did you like the movie version of that?
I was just going to talk about that, because in the final Christian Bale Batman movie, they kind of go over that. And I I liked it. It was almost like it was almost more believable in the comic book in a weird way, though. I don't know why. Just something about it just felt very Hollywood in the movie.
Yeah, I think like the movie, I like the fact that they made it like where he was trying to do too much too fast. He wasn't in his peak fighting form and everything, and he thought he could just step right back in and be the hero of the day, and that wasn't the case. He had he got some lessons taught to him.
Yeah, and I am seeing some love for the Breaking the Bat. I guess it's kind of interesting to look back on a story now that it's been enough time. I remember the Breaking the Bat when it came out was kind of, I felt like it was met with a lot of cynicism in the 90s at the time. That's what I remember of it, from my perspective anyway. But I look back on it and actually, I think the whole Nightfall, Night Quest, Night's End, the whole thing's maybe a little too long. So I kind of fault it for that, I guess. But other than that, I think it's a pretty solid story. And I think, Bigby gave away a copy of the first appearance of Bane last night on his channel. And I actually very glad that somebody won it, but I was actually kind of hoping for that book because Bane has actually become one of my favorite Batman villains. He kind of went from almost being a little two-dimensional to being very fully fleshed out, especially like in more recent runs with Batman. He's become a very layered and intelligent character as opposed to just like a like a bruising brawler you might expect if you just kind of look at him on the surface level. And I think that's cool. I think Bane's kind of been fleshed out as a character because of that, and
I love him in Harley and Ivy too.
For sure.
Everyone picks on him all the time.
When they're not roller skating or ice skating around and whatever that was. Oh, you're talking about the cartoon, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm talking about the cartoon.
I'm talking about Batman and Robin, like the Tim
Burton. Oh no, I'm talking about the cartoon. Yeah, the cartoon. Yeah,
100%.
The Valentine's Day one is great.
But yeah, I think it's a cool story. I think it touches a lot of people that have had to come back from an injury or like a devastating injury. Let's talk about another excellent pick from Bigby.
Yeah, well, I mean, how could you not? I mean, Death of Gwen Stacy. I mean, yikes! That's like one of the original tearjerkers, right? I mean, and then they did it on the last Spider-Man No Way Home with the Garfield scene where he gets to rescue MJ. I mean, God, I started bawling my eyes out there too. So
that was such a, because as a comic book fan, you're watching, you're like, oh my God, are they gonna do that? Like,
they're gonna do it again? Yeah, right.
Yeah,
because he didn't rescue Gwen. That was such the second Andrew Garfield movie was so dark. Like,
yeah,
I mean, and then they ended it on a high note. Like, it's like, oh, and he's gonna fight the Rhino. It's like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah. So Death of Gwen really, I'm sure it's touched everybody who's read that. So
yeah.
Very
important. No, I mean, this is like quintessential kind of Comics Will Break Your Heart right here. I think this was a fantastic pick. I mean, and talk about like lasting legacy for the character too. You think about Spider-Man and you think about what forms his formative moments, right? And I think obviously the death of Uncle Ben is massive. It's gigantic.
Right.
But the death of Gwen is right up there because it sort of reminded him he's not always going to save the day. He's not always perfect.
The death of Uncle Ben because he didn't try, and the death of Gwen because he tried and failed. Right. I mean, so just really, I got.
Yeah. Definitely a good one. Fantastic pick. So my next pick that I came up with was Watchmen. And Watchmen for me, I put it on this list for the same reason that I put uh, psychological horror thrillers as my favorite kind of horror movies.
Right.
The Breaking Your Heart in Watchmen is more abstract. It's more we talked about cynical earlier. It's much more of a cynical look at the world, and it's just as poignant for the greater story of a Cold War that's ticking its way to the doomsday clock to midnight. It's just as relevant in some ways today as it was when it was written. Maybe not in the same lens, because the specific Cold War we think of is kind of over. But hey, I mean, nuclear war, these things are still a threat. There's still something that can happen. Oh, thank you, Damien. Really appreciate it, man. That's very kind of you to say. And also, been calling out some of the great people that are in our community. Damien is definitely one of those. Go follow Damien on YouTube. If you're not, you should be, because he's one of the, at this point, definitely one of the OGs out there, and very awesome guy. Always a pleasure to run into him. But yeah, Watchmen just, and the ending too, with if you're not kind of recalling the ending right away, think about it. Like, you basically have the plot unfolds, you learn everything, and everybody kind of agrees with Ozymandias that yeah, we can't go public with this because it'll put us right back in the situation we were in. And you have Rorschach, who's just like, F that, I can't do it any other way, and he has to die for it. So it's kind of on two different levels. Yeah, and then I mean, you could even go with kind of almost the tragedy of Dr. Manhattan on top of that, who I mean, that's kind of his final parting act, is to kill Rorschach, and then he's off to another galaxy, essentially. He did to do pseudo nouveau god things that whatever proto gods do. It's just crazy.
Yeah, no, I think Watchmen, because it's like bringing those heroes down and like humanizing them and putting them through the ringer of all the trials and tribulations. Some of them showing how flawed they are. Like the comedian and all those guys, pretty messed up characters, but just a great series. And a lot of tragic elements in that storyline, for sure.
Definitely. And I mean, I think it's kind of one of those ones too that people copied, or the spirit of it lived and had such a shadow on comic books for a while after that I think sometimes people forget about it. And then, the movie is kind of overshadowed. There's the recent animated movies that came out, but if you really kind of go back and read the story, I think it still has a lot of value to it. That is just as good for us today to kind of read about. But it is scary and kind of that Cold War, hide under your desk threat of nuclear fireball.
Did you watch the Watchmen sequel series they had on HBO? It's
fantastic.
Yeah, it's really good.
That was such a treat, because I remember going into that not really knowing what it was. I thought it was I just had seen like one trailer, I think, and for some reason I thought it was a prequel series, because they show a lot of the
you didn't really tell, right?
Yeah. And so I thought it was going to be a little bit like that before Watchmen stuff they did, which was it was okay or whatever, but it wasn't the same. So I was worried about that, and then it was stellar. It was so good.
Lord of Brooklyn, that's a great one, and Pops, that's a good one too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what I will say about Mage is, to me, it's weird that Mage, especially Hero Discovered, is kind of not talked about as much anymore.
It's a great series. I hope that someday both that and Grendel get pulled into. Grendel was right there on the cusp with that show, that channel that cut Grendel.
Wait, what? I thought I followed you, and then I kind of lost you.
Grendel was about to be produced by.
A movie or a series or something?
Yeah, a series was going to be produced on. I can't think of the name of it. Not Prime, the other one.
Oh, Paramount?
No, the other big streaming series.
Disney Plus Max, Peacock,
Got the red
Apple
logo.
TV.
I can't think of the name of it. Netflix.
There we
Netflix.
go. Oh yeah, the
Netflix
OG.
had all of it filmed. They were down to just doing post-production stuff.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Pulled the plug. Matt Wagner says he has the entire thing. He can watch it. It just doesn't have all these special effects in it. He's so upset about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to kind of, great comment. Good point. I wanted to highlight the fact that for some reason, Mage just doesn't get that much love. I don't see as many people talking about it.
Great series. I would like to pick up some high grade copies of that early stuff.
Yeah,
would be nice. And they're kind of hard to find.
Yeah,
Dave had someone. We were up there in.
Yeah, I think I grabbed a number 1 off of him because I'm the same way. Like, because I read trades for all of them, but I would happily pick up the floppies.
Yes,
okay. I love Figure Drax comment here. What about the death of J. Scott Campbell doing interior art?
Yeah.
Hey, that'll break my heart too.
That is pretty sad.
Yeah,
tragic. He did some really good interior art, actually.
Let's see here. You said Lords of Brooklyn. Oh, here we go. Alan Moore now despises Bronze Age for watching HBO's Watchmen.
No, Lord of Brooklyn had another quote up there.
Did I miss another one? Oh, Death of Kid Miracle Man.
Death of Kid Miracle Man. That's really, really good.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, some great stories we're talking about here. Like, yeah.
There was still another one I didn't think of.
I'm like totally drawing a blank on Netflix. I'm like, it's got the red logo.
Well, I knew there was a Grendel project that was in development, but I didn't realize it was like filmed and like
it was filmed and all the way to post-production. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was like it was when Netflix was having massive financial problems and they were just chopping things left and right. And it was like that was right there, ready to be released.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome Sauce asked if the Watchmen HBO show is worth watching.
Oh, yeah.
I actually think that it's better than any of the Watchmen film, like the animated or the live action films at this point. So I definitely think so.
The animated is more faithful to the graphic novel.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've read Watchmen, but it definitely has like the original ending to it for sure. I can't remember if there's any other big changes or omissions, but I think they did a pretty faithful reproduction.
Yeah, well, I just recently watched the first part, and it was spot on, like panel for panel. So.
Yeah, they even include the
comic
Curse of the Black Sails. Like what's the?
Yeah,
can't remember the name of the comic.
I think
that's even in there
or something like that, or
yeah. Oh wow, okay. Eddie says that's probably why Spidey has always been my favorite. I can relate to him a lot. Losing my dad as a kid, I was devastated. Wow. Oh, I'm sorry that happened, Eddie.
And Tales of the Black Freighter. There we go.
That's it. Thank you very much, Pop. I always think of it as that darn pirate story. I will say that there's the ultimate cut that preserves the ultimate cut of the Snyder movie that preserves the Tales of the Black Freighter 2, or at least kind of introduces it. But this was actually, I enjoyed the animated version of the Tales of the Black Freighter more than the original comic book version, because the original comic book, it always drew me out of the story.
Right.
Even though like I was like, okay, I get it, it makes sense. The animated actually did a better job of because they could intercut scenes like with the voiceover of the Tales of the Black Freighter with the story, the regular story that's going on in the current timeline. It actually did a better job to me of kind of highlighting the allegory that's going on there.
Yeah, no, I think they did a really good job.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was just some classic stuff, but I was kind of like, hey, let's get back to the, the blue guy. I was a dumb kid. What did I know? Um, let's see. Were we on? Yeah, we're on Bigby's next pick here, which is another doozy. Great picks, man. You did a good job. Let me pull up that for you.
This one kicked me in the nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I guess. I mean, if you guys read Spider-Man Reign, Peter is coming to the realization that he gave Mary Jane cervical cancer by being married to her and having relations with her. So he sings the song while he's talking about he says, I basically killed my wife. He says he's got radioactive blood and other fluids.
Yeah.
That his head in his hands.
I am going to pull back from making a joke, but there's a joke I want to make. But yeah, no, it's a very dark story.
It's a pretty heart-wrenching scene. He's an old man regretting that he, basically feels like he killed his wife. So
yeah,
or was the cause of her death. So
yeah, it's weird how it kind of this had a resurgence actually because of a YouTube video. There was a YouTube video talking about the story that became kind of viral, and people latched onto it. And kind of I know like the price of the original run went up in value, and then I know they did like a sequel. I think probably I'm guessing based on the success of that viral video.
It's a really good storyline. It's like I don't know. Well, no spoilers. We're way past spoilers, so
yeah.
But Spider-Man's been gone forever, right? And then he just decides to come out of retirement, and Dr. Octopus's tentacles are in a museum, and on a TV it shows Spider-Man is back, and Doc Ock's consciousness is in the tentacles and busts out to go kill Spider-Man.
So X, I can't give a title to do it with, but take the same approach like 3-4 Industries with Halo 4, Forward and Dawn. A little starting with relationship no one cares, bring the lead up to how they came to be. I don't know if look, I have a history with 343 Industries, so you caught my attention with a comment for sure. But I'm not sure, did I miss something? Is there a title you're specifically thinking about or a character you're thinking about doing that with, or just kind of like that approach, X? Because actually, Forward Unto Dawn is kind of an underrated piece of media for the time. By the way, if you haven't seen it, it's cool, and it's probably, pretty safely with the new series, the best live action interpretation of Master Chief we've ever gotten. But yeah. Oh, Reign, dark stuff.
Yep, no, but it's good. If you get a chance to read it, it's very good.
Yeah.
That's only a small part, but it was pretty striking when you read
it. Good. Reign 2 is good as well. All right, interesting.
Yeah, Reign 2, he's got the big old beard hanging out underneath the mask. It's pretty great.
Yeah. So my next story is really kind of my big one, as far as, well, actually there's a couple more, but this is my big one. It's I think I have the issue number right. G.I. Joe 107. It's the Trucial Abysmia story where several Joes are being kept prisoner in G.I. Joe, which happens all the time. That's nothing new. But in comes an interesting character in the form of an absolute sociopath saw viper, and he takes care of a bunch of Joes and kills several Joes, and not something that you would normally see in a licensed property, a toy series licensed property. But obviously, a lot of people know this is nothing new. Larry Hama, a actual veteran, who saw death in combat. I think very wisely put this into the story, into the narrative, and it really made it more real, in a serious way, to see actual stakes and death in the story. Now, you could argue that the characters that are killed are not necessarily the most favorite characters of all time in the G.I. Joe roster. A lot of them are from kind of an infamously maligned subline called Battle Force 2000. But you do have, Doc is a pretty prominent character that gets killed. Probably one of the more beloved OG Joes for sure. And yeah, so it's just kind of this crazy thing that happens where, as a kid, I just remember being like, I can't believe they did that. And in a very weird way, I thought it was cool because of how much more real it made it. But also, it's like, damn, like that really does make you kind of stop and think. And I think that's a very I know a lot of kids read that comic book, and I know that they probably weren't expecting that either. And so I think it was kind of good for them to see that, like, these aren't just red and blue lasers flying back and forth like in the cartoon and everybody gets knocked out and like like we talked about, I think in the last stream, where Duke dies in the G.I. Joe movie, but he's actually fine and he's just in a coma.
Right. Yeah. They killed Quick Kick in that too, right? Quick Kick and Snow Job died.
I don't think it's Snow Job. I think Quick Kick, Doc, and then mostly Battle Force 2000.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember who else might die in that issue. Now that I think about it, it's been a while since I've actually gone back and read it. But
good on Larry Hama to write that. Not wanting to promote the military as something that has no lasting repercussions or anything, like saying, hey, there's going to be death and casualties if you're looking at this as not wanting to promote that fairy tale to kids going forward, like, oh yeah, nothing, like you're saying, people are just going to get knocked out and everyone's going to be okay and the bad guys can't aim. It's not necessarily the case.
Yeah it's actually again, those real stakes, and it matters. I kind of expected to see more death in the series after that, kind of because I wondered if maybe that kind of thing was happening where maybe the series was aging up with its readers a little bit or something like that. But
I was wondering if they were going to start like killing off the characters that were no longer being produced as action figures or whatever. Like, okay, we don't need to write about this character anymore. They're not making that figure anymore.
Yeah.
We had early on, they killed General Flag.
They kill Flag. Quinn dies too.
Mm-hmm.
Which Quinn is an awesome character. I love Quinn.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not like there's no death, but there was no like combat, like, I mean, that's almost like an execution, I guess, really.
Yeah, Quinn was killed by the scientist, right? The Dr. Venom.
Yeah, Dr. Venom. Yeah, there's a few deaths.
Shot him in the back, right?
Yeah. But by and large, it wasn't any of the main dudes. Let's put it that way. Because you could make the argument Quinn was created for the comic book. So, and I don't think Quinn ever appeared outside of the comic book until much, much, much later either. So,
yeah.
Which is too bad. I hope the classified series, which, hey, I got one in front of me. I got a little Nemesis Enforcer, or they call him Nemesis Immortal now. I hope they do a Quinn. That'd be really cool.
Did they ever do Snake Eyes with the Weasel Skull necklace with the firing pins?
Not in the classified series, but that would
be really cool. That would be really cool.
Yeah. So let's see.
Kids couldn't withstand Optimus Prime and Duke. That's right.
Yeah, well, you're right about that. I mean, I don't know if you saw my little tidbit of trivia that I shared last stream along those lines, but apparently the Duke death was written and drawn, I believe, before the Optimus Prime death, but the Transformers movie came out first, and they changed it at the last minute because they didn't want to repeat that. So,
Right.
it's kind of interesting. So here's one that's on Bigby's list that I think was mentioned in chat earlier. So it's a good one to bring up.
Yeah. Daredevil 181, Death of Elektra. I mean, ugh. And then, not only does she get run through, but then she's just staggering, dying, bleeding down the street.
It's pretty brutal.
To go to Matt's apartment and die in his apartment, right? I mean, it's like, for him only to find her there dead,
Yeah.
So, this is, yeah, so brutal, but so well done. I mean,
and I know somebody mentioned Death of Karen Page too earlier.
Yeah,
another Daredevil one. I mean, Daredevil. I remember thinking when the Netflix show came out and it had that darker tone that I was so happy it did, because the Daredevil, I think, have always had that darker kind of tone to it in general. Like it could do, Frank Miller, huge credit to him. He brought a lot of that to the character, I think. Right. But yeah, there's definitely the people have said this a million times, it's nothing new, but kind of a more grounded street level approach to Matt Murdock. And I think, the consequences were right there with it too, for better or worse, but I think it made the story better for sure.
Yeah. It's a excellent story.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I guess.
So we're getting kind of near-ish the end of the ones that'll break your heart. So I'm just going to quickly mention a couple others. Don't necessarily talk about them in depth, but there's a couple last ones on my list. One of them is, I think it's Uncanny X-Men 303. It's the death of Ileana. She dies from the legacy virus. I remember thinking about, like, I was an only child, but I remember thinking, like, if I was Colossus, like what that would feel like. And then, the legacy virus had been kind of discussed and talked about in the comics, but now, obviously they killed off a character, the stakes were getting higher. Like you kind of wonder, like, oh gosh, who's next? And I think we've all learned throughout time that diseases can kill. And, you don't really see that too often in comic books. I mean, you kind of do, I guess, at times, but to me, that was kind of a new thing to explore in a superhero book, at least. And so that was pretty meaningful. The other one is a more recent one, and it actually stopped me from reading the rest of the book when it came back, and that's Saga 54, The Death of Marcos. So that was a gut punch. It was a gut punch. It was a gut punch to the point where the comic book stopped for a while. They couldn't continue. Brian K. Vaughan couldn't continue doing it for a while. That was a great series to read. I actually had the pleasure of reading that series after almost all of it was out. So I kind of read that kind of almost as it happened. And then I know it's come back, but I can't bring myself to go. I will someday, but I just haven't been able to bring myself to go back and read it, because it's just, man, it's like if you're reading Walking Dead and Rick died, all of a sudden kind of a story, it's kind of one of those for me. So
on my list is the book that did that for that series.
Yes. Yes. Do you want to kind of quickly go over a couple of your other?
Yeah, sure. We can go over quick.
Okay. I won't even pull them up. You just go ahead and talk about them.
Sure. So what do we got next? Was it the Death of Jean Grey?
Death of Jean Grey, yeah.
Phoenix Death of Jean Grey, realizing that she wasn't going to be able to control the Phoenix Force, and that the X-Men were not going to be able to protect her, choosing to end her own life rather than lose all of her friends' lives. So, really, really devastating story in there. And then what was the next one after that? Walking Dead 100?
I'll just real fast about X-Men 137. I'll just say that what Claremont did for Jean Grey like taking her, you take her from the Phoenix story in 101 all the way up to Death of Phoenix, and then to eventual Dark Phoenix, obviously. The arc, I mean, that was I think a character that was so two-dimensional before that. Before he got a hold of her. And I hate to say that, I wish that wasn't the case, but it's kind of indicative of the times that that was something that was very common, unfortunately. But he really brought that character into her own. And I absolutely, like, everything I love about Jean Grey and Phoenix. She's one of my favorite characters from the X-Men, and it's pretty much all due to him. So a huge shout out to the job he did there and the impact that he put into that character. So
absolutely, yeah, it was really well done. And then was Walking Dead 100 my next one?
Yep. Lord Brooklyn called it.
Yeah, Walking Dead 100, Death of Glenn. That was it for me reading that series. I was done. Yeah,
it's a tough one.
Yeah, and that was it in the show for a lot of people too. A lot of people didn't watch the show after that. That was it.
In the show. Dude, in the show, it's almost like the entire dynamic of the show changes after that, to the point where it's almost like a different show.
Right.
But in the comic book, it's almost it almost makes perfect sense in the comic book and is terrible at the same time, is the only way I can put it. Because Kirkman always had that thing where like no character was safe.
Right.
Even Rick, even Carl, obviously.
Right.
But yeah. Boy, that was a real, just visceral ending.
The one that I didn't put on the list that I thought of last night was The Crow. That one.
Yeah.
So
one of the greatest revenge stories ever.
So much sadness and tragedy in that storyline, though.
Popsequentialism brings up a bunch of great ones here too, and Sandman is an interesting one for me because it is sad, but I feel like it's so poetically appropriate too in that story that I've just I rolled. But it is sad for sure. But yeah, those are some great ones for sure.
Yeah, there's some great Vertigo stuff out there for sure. Vertigo is not afraid to explore a lot of that deeper emotional stuff.
Oh, good bring it, Mr. Gnome. Yeah, Desmond's a cool character. Assassin's Creed is just one of those franchises that almost became too bloated to maintain its integrity, I feel like. Silver Surfer Requiem. Okay, that's a good bring up too.
Well, Popsequentialism says he tapped out with the death of the baby. Yep.
Yeah. That was a tough one. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point, Jay. In the show, Abraham's death and Lynn's death are pretty. Yeah, it's pretty quick succession there. First Spectre issue, Green Arrow 101, great bring up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, a fantastic point with the Brandon Lee. Dying in the set.
Great for jokes tonight. A little levity.
So, as perfect time for that comment, because as promised, we do want to talk about what lethal gas can do to you, and we do want to talk about the dangers of beans, the magical fruit. No, we do want to talk about some comic books that will kind of maybe cleanse that palate a little bit, maybe be a bit uplifting for you. So in chat, go ahead and throw in your favorite chicken soup for the soul, if you will, to use a tired cliche. Stories, stories that really always lift you up. This one was harder for me than the Breaking Your Heart one.
I have two that are by the same artist.
Oh, okay.
They're both the oversized Superman by Alex Ross and the oversized Shazam. I believe was it Peace and Hope are the two books that he did. Both very, very amazing books. Very
Yeah.
uplifting.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Funny enough, Comic Tropes actually brings in one of mine here. But DC's New Frontier is a really good bring up too. All-Star Superman is one of the ones I was thinking of. That to me, because I mentioned the death of Superman. All-Star Superman's kind of like the grown-up version of the subversion of expectation of death of Superman. Like, he thinks he's dying. What's he gonna do? All this plot to it. It's a fantastic story. It's truly probably my favorite Superman story of all time. It's almost like we made the joke on one of the last streams. Batman with prep time. We talked about that, right? Becomes kind of a running joke. Well, we get to see Superman with prep time. Superman with prep time of what he's going to do if he thinks the end is coming, and it's a great story. For me, it's really tough. Like the most uplifting stories, I just go with like my favorite comic books. Like because I mentioned this at the beginning. I read comic books to escape the world. I read comic books to for the same reason I love good science fiction novels. I want to go or a good fantasy novel. I want to go as far away from reality as I can into this kind of, make-believe world that's got its own set of rules and it's intricate. And I love the characters and they can kind of do things that are, power fantasies or whatever you want to call it, things that we don't get to do in real life as it is. And so that's, for me, it's my favorites. It's reading X-Men. It's reading G.I. Joe. It's reading, lighthearted or fun comic books. I just finished reading the final volume with sneer quotes of Empowered, a comic book I love by Adam Warren, just came out. I don't really call it issue 12, but like chapter 12, I guess. Volume 12. That's the word I'm looking for. Of Empowered came out. And it tells a really cool multiversal kind of story. And it's just, there's so many jokes, even though there's some dark stuff that happens. And it's just, that's kind of when I'm reading it, I forget that there's negative things going on in my life or around me or all those kinds of things. So, yeah.
To me, one that was like made me feel good, like at the end of it, is the issue where it's Wolverine and Rogue alone in Japan against Madame Viper. And Rogue sacrifices herself to basically save Wolverine. Takes like a lethal blast, right? She's dying and she doesn't ask Wolverine to take his healing factor. I think she's just going to die. Because she knows, she's like, you all hate me. Nobody accepts me. And Wolverine gives her, I keep feeling choked up, gives her his powers to heal and accepts her as part of the team after she's been, so hated by everyone in the group and everything. And I felt like that was very much like a turning point for that character, very uplifting and like just very cool.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, for some reason, this is one I had a hard time with. And I think it's just because that to me is comic books. Even the ones we talked about that will break your heart. Every single good one that does that, also every single one we talked about, how those characters overcome that will mend your heart. Because it's you're going right along with them. You're on that journey. It might take them a while. They might not ever heal from the actual thing that happened. It might be a lesson that they have to carry for the rest of their life, or think about the death of Gwen Stacy. It's now a key moment in that character's overall arc of their history and who they are. But that's part of who they are. And just like in real life, all these things that happen to us that are terrible, negative, awful, these experiences we go through, depression, all these things, all these very real things, they're part of who we are. If they weren't with us, we wouldn't be us.
Right.
And how we overcome those things is just like in the comic books. It's how we move on. And it doesn't mean you ignore them. It doesn't mean you dwell on them. You have to kind of find that middle ground. So
some great suggestions in the chat.
Yeah.
The pro. Jay with the pro. I
Oh,
would say
boy.
the Bwahaha Justice League is pretty uplifting. Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Milk and cheese.
Tropes
Guy Gardner.
do a power bomb. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's there you go. Yeah, there's some really good suggestions. But yeah, I think that there's probably something to that at the end of the day is something, you know, I really want to stress this to everybody. Part of the reason that Big B and I are doing this show is because we wanted to help people that deal with mental health problems in the comic book world, and depression and negative things that happen contribute to those kinds of things, or they tend to contribute to those kinds of things, right? But I also know so many people in the comic book world that comic books have helped them deal with their issues. I was talking about the escapism, you know, whether it's that or whether it's the artwork or whether it's, you know, all the different things that people love about comic books. So many people I know in the comic book world have demons or dark sides to them, or things they have to fight through. And loving comic books, being part of talking about comic books, coming on, you know, all of you in the chat, people in Discords and IG chats at comic book shops and cons where you're talking about these stories, or you're talking to creators about these stories. That's the kind of stuff that really kind of elevates me and makes me so happy to see people enjoying comic books. When I say, you know, read comics every day at the end of my videos, that's why, because that's why we're all doing it in the first place. I feel like it's why most of us are anyway. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it, I guess. Great comment from Richard, by the way, that Jen kicked cancer's ass every day and she enjoyed life after diagnosis.
Yeah, Frankenstein, she was out picking up books that she wanted to read and have fun.
Yep, absolutely. No, that's a really great point, Richard. I'm glad you said that, and I'm very glad you say that.
Like Awesome Sauce had milk and cheese up there. That was pretty good.
Where Punisher beats the ever-loving shit out of Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Wolverine. Oh, I remember that. There's a couple really great. I really love all the Punisher Wolverine fights too. That's a really good bring up.
Yeah, some good stuff.
Yeah,
especially the Jim Lee one. That was the very first one, right?
That was the first one.
Yeah. Jungle Adventure. Hey, there you go. There's some uplifting stuff. Any Frank Show Jungle Adventure stuff. Uplifting.
Oh yeah, there you go. There you go. Well, and you know,
the She-Devil, that's a really good.
I'll say Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti have both, like, their major runs for me are Power Girl and Harley Quinn, that I think of as being very light and funny, and the artwork's always funny. There's a lot of stuff going on in the story that cracks me up and legitimately makes me laugh. So that those are a couple of good ones too, for sure. Yeah, but there's so many. Wow, well that's kind words, Sicko. I appreciate you saying that. But yeah, that was like Ron was saying, was one of the main driving forces for us to get together and do a show. Was that we wanted to do that. So absolutely. I think unless you had anything else, I think on that note we're going to kind of wind down the show here.
Yeah, well, next episode we got to make sure we hit the community art, because I would definitely want to. That would be an uplifting thing to highlight.
100%.
Get your art into us.
I was just going to mention that. We'll kind of talk about the last few notes here. The first note is there's one more show on the EXP I want to talk about. We are streaming on the EXP, as well as Big B and my channel, which are all those links are in the description below for you. You also have Kicking It with Henri, which is coming on tomorrow night on the EXP as well. Which is at, just looked up the time, sorry, 10 Eastern, 9 Central, 7 Pacific. Another fantastic sales show on the EXP where I've personally bought comic books from Henri and always had a great experience. Found some great, awesome signed books. Got a Mike Zeck signed Secret Wars book from him, and it came in great shape, great shipping. So highly recommend picking up stuff from him. He's a good dude. So go check that show out. But next week we definitely have to hit a community art challenge. So look, if you're watching the show and you draw anything. Send it to us. Send it to us. You still got like basically one more week to get involved before we kind of start collecting our final entries from each person that submitted artwork to us. And we're going to have the community vote on our favorite pieces from those artists. And we're going to reward the winner with some prizes. And really, something we want to be more consistent with, I know in 2025, as we continue the show, is highlighting the community art and kind of getting more involved on that front. We've had some really good submissions that have blown me away. And I love seeing everybody's progress. Some people we watched get better and better throughout the year, which is fantastic. Also, we're going to have some holiday themed stuff going on next week too. I know Bigby has some great ideas. What's that?
Maybe some favorite Christmas covers?
Yeah, exactly. Bigby had some great ideas that I think we're going to run with for next week, where we're going to do some holiday themed stuff in addition to talking about community art. But yeah, absolutely. Very
meet up between now and then. I might have to give you a gift to open on the show or something.
Well, and I've got some goodies for you at the very least that I think you need as well. And we'll definitely have to try to do that. Plus, I think we got some wrapping up some Heroes for Heroes stuff we got to kind of take care of as well too.
Right.
But yeah, so we should do that.
There's some fun stuff coming up.
Yeah, very fun stuff. And Richard has a great comment here, which is exactly how I wanted to close the show, is just kind of remembering Jen and talking about something that really over the last year made me appreciate and love comic books even more. So I think that's a fantastic legacy.
Garfong had a question. Where do you send the art? Either to myself or Bronze on Instagram. You can send just a picture.
Yep.
And we will,
or scan or whatever.
Yeah, a picture or scan or however you want to, or even if you've done it digitally, just a screenshot.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, 100%. You can send it to us. Literally any of our social media. I think all my links are in the description for that. But Bigby is Bigby pretty much, IG and all that kind of stuff, if that's better for you.
Yeah.
And then also my Discord server is a great place to do that too. If you want to come in and share that, we'd love to see it there.
For sure.
Yeah. You know it, Comic Tropes. Comic Tropes knows how we roll.
Oh, baby.
For sure. But yeah, we want to see your artwork. And also, here's the other thing we're going to do is part of that voting process, we're going to share your artwork out there. So that's pretty cool too. So if you want that opportunity. Yeah.
For sure.
So with that said, I think we're going to wrap up the show. We really appreciate everybody for being here. The chat is just always a treat. Like, I seriously spend most of this show just being amazed at some of the awesome comments that come through, the great, comic books you guys bring up, the great information you bring us. Absolutely a treat for you guys to come and spend. For a lot of you, this is really late on a Monday night. And I appreciate that you're willing to do that. I know we both do. And so thank you.
I think we mentioned that before, like they're just as much a part of the show as we are.
Yeah, 100%. At some point, it's really more everybody else's show that we're just here and along for the ride.
That's right.
All right. Well, until then, just in memory of our friend Jen, go ahead and read some comic books. Spread your love of comic books, as Bigby would say. I kind of stole his line there a little bit, but it's important.
You never know where it may lead you.
Exactly. We'll catch you next Monday for that holiday theme show with some extra special announcements and stuff that you guys will get to see. And we're excited for that. So have a great week until then. Stay safe, everybody, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Join the party. Head over to our Linktree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.